And yet again, another episode of Jeeping with Cool Guy. Let's tear apart some stuff. On today's episode of Jeeping with Cool Guy, we're going to put back together our rear tire carrier. This is actually part 1 of 2. So the first part is going to be putting all the components back after I have sandblasted it and powder coated it in my new double oven, which I'm going to show you here in a few seconds. It's super cool. And then the second part of the series, which will come out afterwards, I'm going to guess about 3 or 4 months from now, when I actually put it back together, is how to actually install it onto the back of the CJ7. So part 1 is let's put all the components back together. This is just a glimpse at the aftermath of having done this. I'm going to put another video out there on how to actually do this. But what I did is I took a double wall oven and through a little bit of machinery and some ingenuity, I built a 2-story wall oven. So I was able to fit the tire carrier in here, the tie rod arm, the rear bench back support. This thing's got about a 40-inch, 39-inch area that you can do it in. It's 17 deep, 24 across, but it really makes for a lot more powder coating. It's super cool. Pay attention to that video. It's really fun to build one of these. Let's start with the back release lever. There's 4 components to this. Your newly restored arm. I sandblasted this, powder coated it. You'll need a washer that the inner diameter is large enough to fit over the rod, the lever itself, but also the outer diameter needs to be small enough to where it can fit inside of the squared metal pipe. Then you'll also need, I guess this would be an expansion spring because it pushes out. This should be part of the tire carrier when you took it apart, but if it's not, then you can just go out to the hardware store, see if you can find an expansion spring that is large enough to fit over this rod, but should only be about 1 inch in length at its most expanded set, so that it can fit inside of the metal pipe. And then last but not least, you need your cotter pin, which is going to hold all of this stuff into place. So just took a real quick measurement. This rod is 5/16 thick, so this would be a 5/16 washer. The dimensions for this pipe, inner dimensions is exactly 1 inch. So you want to make sure that the washer is under 1 inch. Spring, if you need to get a new one, is also 1 inch in length. Actually, it's 7/8, about 7/8. And obviously this would have to fit over that rod, so this needs to have a minimum inner diameter of 5/16. I would probably go with 3/8. Let's measure that just to make sure. Actually, it's 7/16. Okay, so the inner diameter of your spring needs to be 7/16. Now to put this all back together, start with the rod. So insert the rod in from the top of the rack down into and far enough to where just the inner post has entered into the second pipe, just at the very tip of that rod. Then you want to take your spring, and you're going to want to use something like a pair of needle nose, pair of needles, pliers, or forceps, just because it's kind of a pain in the butt to get in there. Insert that into and along your rod, and then take your washer and put the washer in between the end of the rod and the pipe so that it goes spring, washer, and then the pipes at the end, or the lever, the rods at the end. Now the complication with this is you have to figure out how to compress that spring by pushing the washer up so that you can get your cotter pin inside of that lever hole inside of this chamber. I'm going to try it with a screwdriver. Let's see if that works. So position your lever to where the cotter pin hole is pointing towards you. Then take a screwdriver and push up on that washer as much as you can, just to get that opening up. Then take your forceps with your cotter pin and put it right down into that hole. Release that. And now we have everything composed. So you can kind of see how the spring operates that way now. The more I think about this, you're going to want to use a short cotter pin because you need to rotate this lever around far enough to where you can bend out that cotter pin. You don't have to bend this thing all the way around. You just need to get to where it will not come back out of that hole again. Okay, cool. There. Should be able to rotate. And that it does. Alright, cool. That part's done. Public service announcement. Subscribe. Like and subscribe. Or dislike. Any one of the two. Helps me out, helps the Jeeping community out, helps the CJ7 community out. One thing that you're going to need to get for this restoration component is the bumper and cap set for your rear tire rack. I'll put the link to this in the description. The one thing to note is that the set really only comes with these two plastic washers, but you're really supposed to have 4 of these. So you might have to run out to the hardware store and get some plastic fender washers because they're supposed to go on the top and the bottom of the mounting bracket bolts when you install this onto your CJ. But that will obviously take place in the second part of the restoration when we actually put this onto the body of the CJ7. So when you get this set, it's going to come with 4 caps. These caps are slightly different dimensions. One actually fits inside of the other one. So when you put these on, make sure that you're applying the right cap to the right end of the metal pipes, the support pipes. So I'm going to put this on here. Obviously that one doesn't fit. I'm going to try the larger one. Okay, so the larger one fits perfectly. So there's one. Okay, that's kind of funny. Apparently the lower support arm has a larger dimension to it, inner dimension, than the upper support arm. So the larger cap goes in the bottom one, or the lower one, and the smaller cap goes into the top bracket. Huh. Well, there you go. That's something new and different. Alright, now we've restored this part of the rack. Let's move on to the other side. This is the exact same as the release arm side of the tire rack. And now that I look at it, you look at the inside of these support arms, the metal is a heck of a lot thicker for the top support arm than it is for the bottom support arm. So just insert your caps and you're pretty much good to go with that. Now we need to add the inner bumpers. So there's 4 bumpers in total. These are all the exact same dimension as far as the length of them goes. The arm bumpers come with metal sheet screws. The lower support arm, which has the actual tire bumper on it, and I'll show you that in just a moment, that's this thing, comes with just regular regular threaded bolts. So go with one of the bumpers, and I've replaced these with stainless steel just because, you know, I'm trying to make sure everything never rusts out again on this. and then you just insert the screw into the bumper, and then you just screw the screw right into the hole that is drilled inside of to the inner side of the tire rack support arm. Sorry the lighting isn't all that great in here, but this is really all that it is. Okay, let's move on to the lower support arm. This is your tire bumper, adjustable tire bumper. This is a 1/2 inch thick bolt, standard or thread count, and you'll need a stopper nut. So this is how the adjustment kind of works. This is a stainless steel bolt, obviously, so it doesn't rust out anymore. I did a hot oil treatment on this, so hopefully this thing will never rust out anymore. And really all you need to do is to screw this in, and once you mount your spare tire on the rack, then you will use this adjusting nut to put the bumper arm or the bumper bolt into the right position to where it gives enough tension and the tire doesn't wobble as much. That's really it. These things have a major habit of rusting out because they weren't treated with anything. So getting this out of this, take your time, use a lot of heat and loosening agent, and be very patient with this because you don't want to snap this thing off, because I haven't been able to find anything that would replicate this type of bolt. You could possibly do it with like a carriage bolt, probably could work. That might actually be a good option for this. You could probably get a stainless steel carriage bolt and do the exact same thing. Last but not least, we need to install the lower arm bumpers. So take the last remaining 2 bumpers, insert the pan bolt screw into that, then insert that from the inner part of the rack. Apply a small washer just so you don't scrape up the paint or however you wind up doing it. And then I am using a nylon lock nut so that this thing never comes undone. This is also stainless steel. So you really don't want to tighten these things down too much. You'll have to fine tune this when you actually get it on to the back of your Jeep, just so that this isn't pressing too hard into the tailgate. So you can basically compress the rubber bumper just enough to where it rests against the tailgate but isn't pushing too hard against it, because you don't want to mess up your paint job. All this does is it operates as a lower kind of buffer, so as the flex comes from the tire that's on the tire rack, this helps to keep it from actually pushing or hitting against the back part of your tailgate. Alright, that's pretty much the restoration for that. Well, part 1. This was just applying all the components to the actual tire rack itself. The part 2 will be installing this, and that's the 3-point bracket. So you got the brackets that's there, there's a rubber bumper on it, then there's the 2 brackets that mount to the right side of the body, and then that's when we'll apply our plastic washers and our bolts and all that other fun stuff. So pay attention to step number 2, or episode number 2 of the rear tire rack installation restoration. Looking forward to the next episode.